Hello and welcome to Vantage This Week, a show where we recap the highlights of the week gone by, starting with US President Donald Trump's many spats, like the one with the International Criminal Court and another with South Africa, which threatens to undermine the G20, plus his many ambitions, like removing Palestinians, rebuilding the Gaza Strip and creating a Riviera, or supplying aid to Kiev in return for Ukraine's rare earth minerals. We will discuss all of this. Meanwhile, in Sweden, their worst mass shooting in history has rattled the nation. In Santorini, thousands of earthquakes have fueled a mass exodus on the Greek island. All this and more lined up for you. Let's get started. Another day, another fight for President Donald Trump, this time with the ICC, that's the International Criminal Court. This is a global judicial body. It investigates the worst crimes of the world, like war crimes or genocide or forced starvation. Sounds like the good fight, but Trump is against them. He has announced sanctions on members of this court. Their names are yet to be revealed, but the impact will be massive. No travel to the United States, no access to US assets, and no financial transactions to America. That will be the impact of this move. But why is Trump doing it? Let me quote the White House statement. This is what it says. The ICC has engaged in illegitimate and baseless actions targeting America and our close ally Israel. The ICC has, without a legitimate basis, asserted jurisdiction over and opened preliminary investigations concerning personnel of the United States. Let me simplify that for you. Trump says the ICC is unfairly targeting the US and Israel, though they have no legal basis to do so. You see, the ICC's powers come from a global treaty, the Rome Statute of 1998. If you sign that statute, you accept the ICC's jurisdiction. If not, you're not bound by the court. More than 120 countries in the world have signed the Rome Statute, but a lot of big powers have not. The United States, Israel, Russia, China, even India, these countries do not accept the International Criminal Court. The court can still probe these countries, but they're not bound by the findings or judgments. They can simply ignore it. Which brings us back to Donald Trump. He's not the kind to ignore anything. His issue with the ICC dates back to his first term. In 2020, Trump sanctioned officials of the ICC. The reason? The court was probing US war crimes in Afghanistan. This time, the US is not in the dock, but Trump's ally, Benjamin Netanyahu, is. ICC prosecutors have accused him of war crimes. They've also secured a warrant for his arrest. Hence the decision to sanction the court. The question is, what happens next? Israel has naturally welcomed Trump's move, but most of Europe is against it. The European Union has released a statement. It says Trump is undermining the international criminal justice system. Germany's Olaf Scholz calls it a wrong decision.
I don't think it's right to impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court. It's so difficult to fight for it to enjoy a reputation and respect. And of course it's perfectly all right to get angry about things, to argue, to stand up in court with your own positions. But sanctions are the wrong thing to do. They are jeopardizing an institution that is supposed to ensure that the dictators of this world cannot simply persecute people and start wars.
The ICC has also condemned it. They are promising to stand by their officials. They've also said that their work will continue. Now let's zoom out for a moment, away from the politics and the reactions. How will this affect our world? Are agencies like the ICC required? For starters, this is not an isolated move. Donald Trump has pulled out of multiple treaties and agencies, like the Paris Climate Accords, the World Health Organization, the UN Human Rights Council, and the UN Aid Agency for Palestine. He's walked out of all of these. He says these bodies are all anti-American, and it is part of Trump's new isolationism. No to global agencies, yes to invading neighbors and occupying Gaza. That's what he's doing. Now, this selective isolationism will have consequences, especially on funding. The US is the biggest contributor to the United Nations. They make up 22% of the overall budget, 27% of the peacekeeping budget, and 47% of the population fund programs. These focus on childbirth and reproductive health. If the US leaves these programs, the funding gap will be huge. We will need other states to step up. Plus, there will be a political vacuum. China is already trying to hijack United Nations institutions. This is the perfect chance for them. So Trump's actions will have real-world consequences. Which brings us to the second question. Are agencies like the ICC necessary? Well, they're not perfect, but not in the way that Trump claims. The ICC mostly focused on the third world, or focuses on the third world. They have ignored crimes committed by the West. Let me show you some numbers. Until April 2024, the ICC has indicted 54 people. 47 of them, 47 out of 54, were African. That's 87% of the indictments from one continent. And we are not saying ignore crimes in Africa, but focus on Western crimes as well. Look at what the ICC did to the United Kingdom. They found evidence that British troops committed war crimes in Iraq. The UK is also a member of the ICC, so the court did have jurisdiction on them. Yet the case was dropped. Same with Australia. Their soldiers were found guilty of war crimes in Afghanistan. Their commanders were stripped of their medals. Yet the International Criminal Court did not probe them. If this isn't a double standard, what is? So Trump is right in saying that the ICC is broken. But America is not the victim here. They have in fact benefited from the ICC's bias. If not, most of the living US presidents would be in jail. So it is important to reform these bodies in the right way to make meaningful and just changes. Is Donald Trump alone the US president, or does he have a co-president in Elon Musk? Ask South Africa. They are on Musk's hit list and by extension, Trump's. This has led to a diplomatic spat between the US and South Africa, and it threatens to derail global cooperation. It threatens to undermine the G20. Let's tell you how it began. With another social media post by President Trump, he paused aid to South Africa and launched an investigation. A probe into land confiscations in South Africa. Trump says, and I'm quoting, they're treating certain classes of people very badly. Listen to this.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land. And actually, they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
Yesterday, the US upped the ante. Their foreign minister weighed in. Secretary of State Marco Rubio put up this message. He said he would not attend the G20 summit in Johannesburg this month. It is scheduled for the 20th and 21st of February, but Rubio says he won't go. He parroted Trump's accusations, saying, and I quote, South Africa is doing very bad things, like expropriating private property and using the G20 to promote DEI. DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Donald Trump hates it, so does his Republican Party. They don't care for diversity. They say it is inefficient. So part of Rubio's boycott is because of that. He also took a jibe at climate change. Again, Trump and his team are climate change deniers. They think global warming is a hoax. So they think sustainability initiatives are a waste of time. And Rubio fired a parting shot. He said, and I quote, my job is to advance America's national interests, not waste taxpayer money or coddle anti-Americanism. Under Trump, DEI and climate change initiatives are a waste and apparently anti-American. I won't get into that argument here. But let's focus on the US reaction. Rubio is ditching the G20 summit altogether. South Africa is the chair this year. They hold the G20 presidency until November this year. The main summit will take place in November. This month's meeting is for G20 foreign ministers, and Rubio's absence is not really a big deal. There's a long time to go for the main summit, and knowing Trump, the political climate may change by then. So it's not like he's ditching the G20, not yet. But the statement about it being a waste of taxpayer money is quite interesting. The G20, remember, was formed in 1999, a grouping of the world's 20 biggest economies. For years, it was a toothless group. Then came the 2008 financial crisis. That's when the G20 really started to matter. It was a forum for the world's biggest economies, a place where they could work together. But since the crisis ended, the G20 hasn't really had the same sort of impact, barring a few incidents. Ideas are proposed, tall promises are made, but without a crisis to deal with, it's mostly a talk shop. So you could say that it is a waste of taxpayer money. That being said, what is the alternative? Should we just stop international coordination altogether? Should it be every country for itself? That doesn't work in the globalized economy. The 2008 crisis was caused by US banks being reckless. It hurt the entire world. That's why the G20 gained prominence in the first place. If you want to do away with some of the extra events, that is fine. I suppose foreign ministers can just have a big Zoom meeting. But the G20 itself, the spirit of cooperation, that should not be allowed to fizzle away, especially for what seems to be South Africa's internal issue. Let's take a closer look at the US-South Africa spat. Beyond the DEI and the climate excuses, the heart of the matter seems to be land. As you know, South Africa is a former colony. The British were there and the Dutch before them. They oppressed the local population. They put racist laws in place, typical colonial exploitation, the after effects of which are still very much evident. Look at this land distribution chart. White South Africans make up about 7% of the country's population. But even in 2022, almost 3 decades after the end of apartheid, they owned over 78% of all the farmland. White South Africans own about half of all the land in the country and 78% of the farmland, and they make up just 7% of the population. How is this still possible or acceptable? It's because land distribution is a contentious issue in South Africa. They have struggled to find a way to redistribute land for years. Last month, they brought a new law, a law that allows the South African government to seize land, that too without compensation. It's not some blanket permission, though. It's only under exceptional circumstances. South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, tried to explain this. He insisted that no land has been seized yet. But that doesn't matter. This new law has still outraged the US. Now you might wonder, why does Washington care about this? Why does Trump? Well, he might not. But one top advisor certainly does, and that is Elon Musk. Musk was born in apartheid South Africa. His father still lives there, and he's very interested in what happens to land there. Musk responded to Ramaphosa's first explanation. He called South Africa's laws openly racist. Now, considering the history, there's a lot of irony in that. But anyway, Ramaphosa realized that he needed to talk to Musk. The South African president arranged a call, then put up a post. Perhaps Ramaphosa thought that his outreach had worked, but it hasn't. When Rubio pulled out of the G20 summit, Musk was there to back him. The billionaire replied with 2 US flag emojis. Clearly, President Ramaphosa's outreach was a failure. Musk will continue to back actions against South Africa, probably until Ramaphosa scraps the law. Until then, expect funding cuts and snubs. Or to quote Trump, perhaps far worse than that. Unity is very rare in our world. But yesterday we saw it, all thanks to US President Donald Trump. He unveiled his Gaza plan this week, a plan to remove Palestinians and rebuild the Strip. His end goal is to create a Riviera, a sort of resort town in Gaza, and cue the criticism. European powers, China, Russia, Arab nations, all of them rejected Trump's plan. So his team had to dial it down. Remember, Trump said he would take over Gaza, but the White House has assured that US soldiers will not be used, and they've also refused to fund the rebuild.
The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region.
So no US troops, no US money. Then what exactly is Trump's contribution? It's like that one member of the group project in school who does nothing but takes the credit. And what about the Gazans? Trump wants Egypt and Jordan to host them. He said they shouldn't return to Gaza because it is unlucky. Again, his team has dialed it down. They say the relocation is temporary.
The only thing President Trump has done very generously, in my view, is offer the United States willingness to step in, clear the debris, clean the place up from all the destruction that's on the ground, clean it up of all these unexploded munitions. And in the meantime, the people living there will not be able, the people who call that home will not be able to live there while you have crews coming in and removing debris, while you have munitions being removed, etc.
So that's what Trump is offering. He will clean up the debris and clear the bombs, which makes sense, I guess. After all, most of the bombs did come from the US. But either way, one thing is clear. This plan is a non-starter. Nobody in West Asia or the world is accepting it, which makes you wonder, where did the idea come from? Who gave this plan to Trump? If you've seen the movie Inception, this will be easier to understand. The movie is about entering another person's dream. Once you enter, you plant an idea in it, and that idea grows into a plan. Something similar seems to have happened here. The Riviera idea probably came from Trump's son-in-law. His name is Jared Kushner. He's married to Trump's daughter, Ivanka. Kushner played a key role in Trump's first term. He was placed in charge of West Asia to strike a comprehensive peace deal for the region. He got mixed results, but in the process, he also made some contacts. He began seeing potential in Gaza, not for peace, but for beachfront tourism. He floated the idea in March last year. Listen to this.
Usually when wars happen, borders are changed historically over time. In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up, livelihoods. But I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up.
It's the same plan pitched by Trump. Eject the people, clean out the Strip, and build a Riviera. Trump already has a real estate background, so when Kushner planted the idea, it grew, which brings us to present day. Trump's West Asia envoy recently visited Gaza. He too has a real estate background. His name is Steve Witkoff. After returning from Gaza, this is what he told Trump.
There's 30,000 unexploded munitions. It is the buildings that could tip over at any moment. There's no utilities there whatsoever. No working water, electric, gas, nothing. God knows what kind of disease might be festering there.
This left an impression on Donald Trump. Plus, he was getting desperate. No one was offering him a feasible plan. The Arab states were not pitching in, and he was told that rebuilding Gaza would take 10 to 15 years, so Trump decided to shake things up, to spur the regional players into action. Apparently, that was the intention of his plan, shock and awe. Now, this strategy has worked in some cases. This week, Trump imposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Both countries gave minor concessions. In his first term, he derided and mocked NATO. The allies responded by hiking defense budgets to 2%. So shock and awe can work, and it has worked in the past. But in this case, it backfired spectacularly. The Arab nations are not playing ball. They will never fund the displacement of Palestinians. It shows the limits of Trump's tactics. He sees West Asia as a deal-making landscape. His envoy sees it as one giant real estate deal. That approach did work in the first term. Trump got multiple Arab nations to recognize Israel, but this time he went too far. He thought his personal equations would smoothen differences. Jared Kushner thought so too. He runs a private investment firm nowadays. It is flush with Gulf money. The Saudis have invested $2 billion. The UAE and Qatar have also invested millions. Plus, the Trump organization has assets in the Gulf. They're building towers in Riyadh and Dubai. Was Donald Trump counting on these personal equations? Perhaps he was. But this isn't a normal real estate deal, you see. It's a decades-old conflict. There are lives, emotions, and history at stake, not just a piece of land.
Take over, Elon. Yes, take over.
Impeach Trump! Arrest Elon Musk! Arrest Elon Musk! Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA!
What is conflict of interest? It is when professional duties get tangled up with personal gains. For most people, it is a red flag, but for Elon Musk, it is just another Thursday. The world's richest man is steering DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. It is not a government department. Musk was not confirmed by the US Senate. He does not hold an official post. But Elon Musk and his team are tearing up US government contracts. They're cutting federal spending. Why is this a problem? Because Elon Musk himself owns 7 companies. Most of them have government contracts. These are contracts worth around $16 billion. And that means Musk's involvement is a clear conflict of interest. He is the one deciding who gets dropped. He decides who loses their contract. And as a businessman, would he ever scrap his own contracts? So the White House was asked about this, about Musk's conflict of interest, and this is what they had to say.
The president was already asked and answered this question this week, and he said if Elon Musk comes across a conflict of interest with the contracts and the funding that DOGE is overseeing, then Elon will excuse himself from those contracts. And he has, again, abided by all applicable laws.
Well, how convenient is that? There's a conflict of interest involving Elon Musk, and who is monitoring him? Elon Musk himself. Looks like the first buddy can do no wrong. But the thing is, Musk is officially a special government employee. At least that's what the White House says. And that means that he is bound by rules, by ethics rules. Rules that this situation clearly violates. Let's look at the numbers. Tesla landed over $350,000 in government contracts last year. SpaceX has multiple contracts worth over $15 billion. So when Elon Musk slashes federal spending, is he really cutting waste, or is he just cutting competition? Guess we'll never know, but the Democrats are already up in arms.
Elon Musk has absolutely no business handling the personal information of American taxpayers, period. For an unelected billionaire to have full access to Americans' personal tax and Social Security information is not only an egregious violation of privacy, but it is illegal under Section 6103 of the Internal Revenue Code.
Constitutional overreach or violation of the law, take your pick. What I know for sure is that my constituents are upset.
So the Democrats are not happy. What about the Republicans? Well, turns out they're not thrilled either. A new survey shows how quickly things have shifted. In November, 47% Republicans wanted Musk to have a lot of influence in the government, 29% wanted him to have a little influence, and 12% did not want him at all. And this was 2 months ago, November 2024. Now, a new survey has been conducted, and look at how the sentiment has shifted in this time. Now, only 26% Republicans want Elon Musk to have a lot of influence, 43% want a little influence, and 17% want him out. They're raising red flags over the influence of Musk and DOGE, over conflicts of interest, over access to classified information, Musk's billionaire status, and the overall overreach. Looks like his political stock is not just dropping, it is crashing. And he isn't the only problem here. It's also the team that he's hired. Doge is led by a group of 19 to 26-year-olds. Most of them are coders and engineers. Half of them do not have a formal degree. All of them have no bureaucratic experience, and some even have a shady past. Like 25-year-old Marco Elez. He was working at the Treasury Department, leading Doge's efforts to cut costs there. But a number of his old posts have now resurfaced. Let me read out some of them for you. This is what he wrote. You could not pay me to marry outside of my ethnicity. Another post says, normalize Indian hate. We've got one more. Just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. All these posts have now been deleted, and Elez has resigned from Doge. But the posts are revealing, and the damage is done. Elon Musk's staffer was racist. And if this is the kind of team that he has built to overhaul the US government, then the issue is clearly bigger than conflict of interest. It's also about what kind of people have been trusted with this power. Here's a billionaire with government contracts running an operation with no oversight and a team that has racist members and no experience. I guess at some point the United States has to ask the tough question. Having a watchdog is great, but who is watching that watchdog? In his heart, President Trump is a businessman. He doesn't understand alliances or rivalries, but he does understand deals. If you give him something, you should get something in return. Not 10 years from now, not 5 years from now. You should get something today. And that's President Trump's plan for Ukraine. He is willing to supply aid to Kiev, but he wants something in return. He wants Ukraine's rare earth minerals.
We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to go in terms of a guarantee. We want a guarantee. We're handing them money hand over fist. We're giving them equipment. European is not keeping up with us. They should equalize. They should really be paying much more than us, but let's say equal to us, and they're billions and billions of dollars below. So we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things.
You think you've heard it all, but Trump still manages to surprise you. He's talking about rare earth minerals like lithium, uranium, and titanium. These are key to making new age technologies. For example, batteries and chips. And how much does Ukraine have? There is no official estimate from Kiev, but some reports say several $1 trillion, which is why Trump is asking for it. His logic is pretty simple. If the US is arming Ukraine, there should be an upside, some tangible benefit for the Americans. And what better than rare earth minerals? But where did Trump get this idea from? Reports say Zelensky himself. That's right. These minerals were part of Zelensky's so-called victory plan. He wants the United States and American companies to mine them. In return, Ukraine would get military aid. It was a strategy tailor-made for Donald Trump to keep him interested in the war. So don't think that Trump is driving a hard bargain here or he's plundering Ukraine's wealth. He's simply taking up Zelensky's own offer. The question is, how will this play out? In Ukraine, the officials are preparing deals and joint agreements. They are keen to take up Trump's deal. Again, the logic is quite simple. If the US is invested in Ukraine, they will have a reason to defend it, an actual reason, not made-up ones like NATO or democracy. But others are not too happy, including Russia and the European Union. The Kremlin says Ukraine is buying aid from the US.
In other words, it is a proposal to buy aid, meaning not to continue to provide it free of charge or otherwise, but to provide it on a commercial basis. It is better, of course, not to provide aid at all, thus contributing to the end of this conflict.
Clearly, this is unacceptable for Moscow. Throwing underfed North Koreans into the front line is okay, but buying foreign aid, well, that's a red line. Even Europe is not impressed. Germany's Olaf Scholz is leading the criticism. Let me quote from what he said. We should use this country's resources to finance everything that will be needed after the war. It would be very selfish and egocentric to use the money now to finance defense support. Now, Olaf Scholz is usually diplomatic. So these words coming from him are tough. But let's focus on Trump's deal. How feasible is this barter? Right at the outset, there is an obvious problem. Russia controls 20% of Ukrainian land. What if some of the rare earth minerals are in those parts? You simply won't be able to access them. That is one problem. Also, there's a war to be fought. Can you extract minerals in the middle of the fighting? Can Ukraine spare the manpower? If not, will America send its own? And if so, will they be attacked by Russia? These are all very risky scenarios. You cannot find solutions for them overnight. Yes, you can strike a deal or sign an agreement ASAP. But the actual mining will be harder. And Olaf Scholz has got a point. Ukraine needs these resources to rebuild their country. Experts say it could cost $486 billion. That's 3 times Ukraine's GDP. So Zelensky should ask himself an important question. Is he rushing into this agreement? Is it worth signing away national treasures? As for Trump, this is a clear template. His message to allies and partners is the same. If you want my support, pay for it. This is transactional diplomacy at its Trumpian best. Donald Trump's deportation drive hit a new milestone today. The US president sent a military jet to India carrying over 100 undocumented immigrants from India. This is the furthest a US military deportation flight has ever gone. The US has deported Indians before. More than 1,000 of them were sent home last year, but they were sent back via charter or commercial flights. It was far more subtle. Trump doesn't care about subtlety, though. He seems to want to make a show of it, a show of his mass deportation drive in action, and that is probably why he prefers deportations via military aircraft. A C-17 Globemaster III landed in India today at the international airport in Amritsar in the state of Punjab. Reports say it brought back 104 undocumented immigrants. Let's look at the breakup. There were 25 women and 79 men. Out of the 104 migrants, 12 were minors, 33 were from the state of Gujarat, 33 from Haryana, 30 from Punjab, 2 from the Union Territory of Chandigarh, 2 from Uttar Pradesh, and 3 from Maharashtra. One person's place of origin is still unknown. All these people landed in Amritsar earlier today. Reports say they were greeted in a friendly manner. A team of doctors was said to be on standby. Arrangements were made for food. One official who greeted them hinted that they may not have been fed well. It looked like they hadn't seen hot food in ages, which probably should be expected. These were undocumented immigrants, after all, people who tried to enter the US illegally or who overstayed their welcome after their visas expired. So it makes sense that the US would not feed them well. The Punjab government did some due diligence, checked if any of them had a criminal history. Those found to be harmless will be sent home, back to their respective states, apparently in mini buses. But before that, they will be questioned. All said and done, these Indians were in the US illegally, or at least trying to get in. How did they do that? Who helped them enter? Were human traffickers involved? All these questions are questions that Indian authorities want answered. Once the officials extract all the information they can, the migrants will be sent home. The Punjab police say there won't be any detentions. The migrants will be sent home, quote unquote, respectfully. Now, this is similar to other deportation stories from other parts of the world. Last week, in fact, we told you about Guatemala. The US sent multiple deportation flights to the Central American nation. Again, military planes. Guatemala's vice president greeted the first batch of migrants in person, welcoming them back home. It seems that India is doing the same thing, warmly receiving the immigrants and not creating much of a fuss. After all, this might all blow over soon. As I mentioned, India has always taken back undocumented immigrants. India took back more than 1,000 last year, so this is nothing new. Today's flight carried 104 people. There's a lot more to go. India has agreed to take back at least 18,000 migrants from the United States. So today was just the beginning. But will the next batches also come via military jets? The military deportation flights are good optics for Trump, but how long will that last? They aren't free, you know. Reports say they're more expensive than the usual commercial deportation flights, by far. So chances are that Trump will stop using them soon enough, once the novelty wears off. Then it will probably go back to chartered and commercial deportation flights, and India will return to taking back its citizens quietly. Now let's talk about Brian Johnson. If you don't live under a rock, you have most likely heard of him. He's an American tech entrepreneur and an anti-aging fanatic. He's 47 years old. That's his chronological age. But he has the heart of a 37-year-old, the skin of a 22-year-old, and the lungs of an 18-year-old, because much of his time and money is dedicated to age reversal. Johnson wakes up at 4:30 a.m. every day. He eats all meals before 11 a.m. He pops more than 100 pills daily, injects his face with bizarre treatments, exchanges his blood with his sons. Basically, he's up for all kinds of strange experiments. But India's heir, that's where he draws the line. Recently, Brian Johnson was in India, and within 3 days, he began to notice the changes, he says. His skin broke out in rashes, his eyes started watering, his throat was irritated. Then he went on a podcast, but he cut the conversation short. He walked out of the podcast, recording midway because of the air. He could not tolerate the room's air quality, he said. Now, it's worth knowing this. The podcast was being recorded in a 5-star hotel. Johnson was wearing an N95 mask. There was an air purifier in the room, and the room's air quality stood at 130. But Johnson just could not take it. If you live in India, this may seem a little over the top. Most Indians would consider an AQI of 130 a privilege. People exercise outside in this air. Children go to school in this air. Babies and elders breathe this air all the time. People rarely complain about this air quality. But reality check. It is as harmful as smoking more than 3 cigarettes a day. So Johnson's reaction to the pollution should not come as a surprise. And needless to say, this is not a good look for India. We're talking about the world's 5th largest economy that aspires to be a developed nation by 2047 and a global superpower. But when the country is shrouded in bad air, it dims brand India. And we shouldn't have to wait for a tech entrepreneur from the US to tell us this or to trigger this conversation. But here we are. India is among the most polluted countries in the world. This is the world's most populated nation, and its entire population is exposed to pollutants. This causes more than 2 million deaths every year, and it has a heavy cost to the economy, about $37 billion. Here, AQI regularly reaches 500, which is considered hazardous. It should be far from the norm. But what's worse is that the AQI exceeds this limit during winter months. And that's when there is some uproar in the country, when it becomes very hard to breathe, when visibility goes to zero, when schools have to be shut. That's when we remember that pollution is a problem. So it may seem strange that someone is talking about air pollution in the month of February when the AQI is only 130. But do you know what's stranger? The fact that we continue to ignore the horrifying effects of pollution, effects that we already know about. Bad air causes heart disease, stroke and cancer. That's right, it even causes cancer. And this is not just about India. The world over, air pollution is fueling a rise in cancer, especially lung cancer. And what we're seeing now is unprecedented. About 2.5 million people are diagnosed with the disease every year. And these cases are on the rise globally, especially among people who have never smoked before. And the largest burden of these cases is in East Asia, particularly China. How is this acceptable? Did you know that today is World Cancer Day? It is the 25th time that the world is observing this day to spread awareness, to boost action, to save lives. Leaders everywhere are talking about cancer. Experts are sitting down for panel discussions. Social media is brimming with celebrity endorsements. Yet citizens are breathing toxic air the world over. So it's time to ask, when will this change? Because a millionaire abandoning a podcast can only stir conversation. It won't stop pollution from serving death sentences. Now let's talk about Sweden. The Nordic country has witnessed its deadliest gun attack in history. It happened in the city of Örebro, which is west of the capital Stockholm. A gunman entered an adult education center and opened fire. At least 11 people have died, including the shooter, and several others are injured. So who was the perpetrator? What was the motive behind the attack? And how are people reacting to this tragedy that has sent shockwaves through Sweden? Here is a report.
Sweden is in shock. Authorities are still searching for answers after a deadly shooting attack unfolded on Tuesday. At least 11 people were killed and at least 6 were wounded in what the government has called the worst mass shooting in the country's history.
It is difficult to take in the magnitude of what has happened today, the darkness that is now falling over Sweden tonight. Today we have seen a brutal, deadly violence against completely innocent people. This is the worst mass shooting in Swedish history.
It happened at an adult education center in the city of Örebro, home to about 100,000 people, 200 kilometers west of the capital, Stockholm. Gunfire erupted around noon local time. The school offers classes to about 2,000 adults, many of whom are immigrants seeking qualifications to help them find jobs in the Nordic country. Some students were in class, while others were having lunch when the gunman began firing. Students cowered under their desks. Authorities soon responded. Police cars arrived. Armed officers swarmed the campus. Nearby schools were put on lockdown. When the officers reached, the suspected gunman was already dead, after having claimed 10 other victims.
When the police arrived, there was gunfire. The perception was also that they got fired upon initially. When the search was then carried out inside the premises, the perpetrator was found dead.
The police are still in the process of identifying the victims, and they have opened an investigation. They are looking into murder, arson, and an aggravated weapons offense. But they claim this was a one-man operation. So who was the perpetrator? The details are not clear yet. But according to reports, it was a 35-year-old unemployed recluse. The police say there were no prior warning signs. The perpetrator was not previously known to the police. And there is strong evidence that the gunman shot himself. Though it's not clear what the suspect's exact motives were behind the attack. Swedish media reports are rife with rumors about ideological motives to attack a school educating immigrants, but the police have dismissed such talk.
Another bit that is important and that everyone can take responsibility for is to only spread confirmed information. Rumors and speculation are something that only creates more anxiety in an already anxious time.
It's an anxious time for Sweden indeed. The country has high living standards. It was long known for low crime rates, but now it has one of the highest per capita rates of gun violence in the European Union. Even so, mass gun attacks or school attacks are rare in the country. And today, as people woke up to sheer shock and pain, the country is grieving victims of its deadliest gun attack. Candles and flowers have been placed near the school where the incident took place. Flags are flying at half-mast in Örebro, as well as the Parliament and the Royal Palace in Stockholm. The Prime Minister met with the Justice Minister and the police authority. The Swedish King and Queen have visited the school and attended a memorial service. The attack has sent shockwaves through Sweden, and the country is coming together in mourning, hoping that this tragedy doesn't repeat itself.
Now let's turn our attention to Santorini. This is a Greek island and a popular tourist hotspot, but over the past week it has witnessed a mass exodus of tourists and residents due to the seismic swarm. That's what it's being called. Nearly 8,000 earthquakes have rattled the island over the past week. 8,000. Yesterday, the biggest quake so far rocked Santorini. It has reached a magnitude of 5.2. The authorities have declared an emergency and they're scrambling to prepare for the worst. Here's a report.
7,700. That's how many earthquakes have been felt in Santorini over the past week. Thousands of tremors have rattled this bucket list-worth Greek island and turned its Instagram-worthy villages into ghost towns. Yesterday, the island was hit with its most powerful quake so far. It reached a magnitude of 5.2. So now, Greek authorities have declared a state of emergency in Santorini. The barrage of quakes haven't caused too much damage, but they have shut schools on the resort island and fueled a mass exodus of people. Tourists, seasonal workers, residents, they are all leaving on ferries and planes. About 3/4 of the island's 15,000 population have evacuated so far.
There's a bit of fear. With earthquakes, there's a bit of fear. Danger is everywhere. The main thing is not to have too much anxiety.
The Greek Prime Minister has visited the quake-struck island. He has imposed more precautionary measures and announced a $3 million package to construct an emergency evacuation route. As quakes continue to rock the so-called Instagram island, multiple emergency services have been mobilized. Crews of engineers are inspecting buildings. Traffic has been restricted in areas vulnerable to rock slides. Army trucks have brought electricity generators to Santorini.
We have done this planning, which means we have the places of refuge, the registration of the people with special needs who should perhaps be transferred quickly to other places in each community, and they are updated at regular intervals.
What the island is witnessing is unprecedented. There are clusters of quakes that come in unusual patterns, and they've puzzled scientists.
This seismicity has a certain pulse-like, as I said, behavior, meaning it starts with not a big magnitude, around magnitude 4, and then it swarms, it gathers intensity, seismic intensity. So we have a lot of earthquakes happening within 1 to 2 hours. Then the system relaxes again. And then we have again start of this pulse-like seismicity.
Santorini lies on the Hellenic volcanic arc. Think of this as a chain of islands created by volcanoes. But it has not seen a major eruption in recent times, not since the 1950s. So the reason for the current seismic crisis is unclear. The quake epicenters are not concentrated in Santorini alone, but in a cluster of islands, which also includes Anafi, Amorgos and Ios. This is a relatively small area, and the tremors slowly began with the awakening of a volcano on Santorini last year. But the surge only came this January and escalated over the last weekend. While this much is clear, no one knows what's behind the surge. Though there is a silver lining. The tremors are underwater, and this significantly reduces the risk compared to land-based earthquakes. So, while the whitewashed island remains in the dark over what's causing these quakes, it is preparing for the worst while hoping for the best.
They say love is blind, but sometimes it's also stupid. Let me introduce Onija Andrew Robinson, a 33-year-old woman from New York. She met a 19-year-old Pakistani boy online and fell in love. Last year, she flew to Karachi to marry him. Just one problem, though. The boy and his family rejected the match. Robinson first responded by camping outside their house. When that failed, she held a press conference. Her demand? That Pakistan's government should pay her $100,000. Frankly, that's the joke. That anyone would think Pakistan could spare $100 grand. Robinson has now become an online sensation. People are making memes and reels with her comments. Take a look.
I'm not talking unless y'all giving me land and 2,000 or more every week. I don't live here, I'm chilling.
Why you come in Pakistan?
I demand from the government more than $5,000 in USD to make Pakistan a better place. Good night. Mind your business. What? Talk.
Tell me you have a Pakistani passport?
I'm getting one. Do you have one? Saying he talked too much. That's it.
Yes, that's it. Yes, I'm saying. Listen,
you talk too much. It's not.
Come here, please come here.
Listen, shh.
Please.
Be quiet. I'm not sitting down. My plan is to reconstruct this whole country, okay? I'm asking for 100K or more. I need 20K by this week, okay? In my pockets, in cash. I'm not talking unless y'all giving me land and 2,000 or more.
I'm not talking unless y'all giving me land and 2K or more every week. You hear me? I'm getting my Pakistani passport and my Pakistani ID. You cannot get Pakistani ID. I'm getting it. Do you agree? We do not agree.
Unless y'all giving me land and 2,000 or more every week. You hear me? Yep. I'm getting my Pakistani passport and Pakistani ID. I'm getting it. Do y'all agree?
I need 20,000 at the end of the day for my lipo. Okay? 20,000.